Hi, I'm Tiffany.
And I'm Rihanna, and welcome back to Fresh Off the Broke.
Fresh Off the Broke is about personal experiences growing up Asian American in a predominantly white community, Asian media, and Asian pop culture in general. Race has always been a sensitive topic. Every day there are debates over race. With our podcast, we intend to shed light on the experiences of first-generation Asian immigrants, not put them on a pedestal.
We understand that race isn't everything, but there should be an acknowledgement of people of color, the knowledge gap, and the racial divide that will ideally be broken. Now that that's out of the way, let's get into the episode. Today's topic is being scared of your own parents.
Ooh. Well, in case you haven't noticed yet, or if you're watching this episode or listening to it a little later than it came out, it's Halloween season.
Yay!
Spooky season. What did I just say? It's spooky season.
Yay! Favorite.
Comment down below if you're a autumn fan, Halloween best season fan. Is Halloween your favorite holiday? Let us know. What are you dressing up as for Halloween?
Oh yeah.
What did you dress up as for Halloween?
Yeah, maybe you're watching this and it's like the middle of spring.
Then that'd just be like a random cosplay, but
That's true.
no one said we're against that.
Yeah.
Dress up to listen to this episode.
Yeah, you need to actually.
Yeah. Anyways, like we were saying, it's spooky season, so what better time to talk about being scared of your parents, specifically your Asian parents, than now? Because, let's be honest, what's scarier than your Asian parents?
Yeah.
I could not name something else.
No.
Truthfully.
Yeah. Honestly, yeah.
Trembling right now.
Yeah. Be scary. And we'll get into it in case you don't understand what we're talking about.
Must be nice. Anyways, alongside that, we were also inspired to record this episode because we had watched Amma, which was a Asian American horror movie that came out this past spring, and is about a Korean American woman and like her childhood trauma with her mother and dealing or like processing the childhood abuse that she suffered.
Basically, in short, her being afraid of her mom. Which, wow, sounds familiar. What are we talking about again?
What are we talking about?
Good question. So, in case you need a little explanation for why this or being scared of your own parents is a topic for a specifically Asian podcast, like why are Asians generally afraid of their own parents? This is a pretty loaded question. And I think it's safe to say that we've addressed all of the things that we're about to bring up in like maybe every episode, if not every episode, maybe like every other episode that we've ever recorded ever. So one huge aspect to why Asians are afraid of their own parents is because respect is a very, very, very important concept in Asian culture. Quick shout out to our Asian parents episodes, especially the one that we just published. Maybe give it a stream, you know. But yeah, respect is such a huge thing that is ingrained in families and just young children in general, that you grow up believing that you need to keep this respect up. And with respect comes fear. To respect somebody, there's obviously that like you're putting that person on a pedestal. There's almost this sense of fear when you want to respect someone because they're an authority figure. Just like feelings like that. Not fear, but respect. And that respect plays into the actual fear of your own parents.
Right, because the fear of disappointing them, or depending on the types of parents that you have, it can also be like what happens when you do disappoint them and how they react.
Yeah.
Because let's remind everyone not everyone has healthy or I'm not sure what the word I not what word I should use right now, but some people have extremely toxic relationship with their parents. Some people
Uh-huh.
have abusive parents.
Uh-huh. And that plays into another thing that I was going to bring up, in that Asian parents are typically use a more authoritarian parenting style, which involves a lot more punishment. And that also is a huge part of the fear. Like punishment, obviously, you're going to fear that. That's not something that you want.
Mhm.
And like statistically, Asian parents have a more authoritarian parenting style and like use these punishments.
Mhm. I mean, we've mentioned it, so, like you said, so many times in other episodes,
Yeah, yeah.
talking about the differences in that
Parenting
Asian,
styles.
yeah, different parenting styles or like the effect that it has on a child.
Hmm.
And I mean, like you were saying with culture, like respect is super huge. Filial piety, we just talked about that.
Uh-huh.
Tiger parents and the whole family first mentality,
Mm.
where it goes back to the respect thing to a certain extent that is entitled
Hmm.
and you're obligated to. Because you know that, I don't know if it's a saying, but universally or relatively universally, people believe that, like blood is thicker than water, like
Uh-huh.
family is family no matter what, right?
Uh-huh.
And that plays into the whole like Asian family dynamic or like many Asian families dynamic
Hmm.
where no matter what, you have to respect or you have to listen to your parents
Hmm.
or elders in general, even if they may be wrong or you disagree with them.
Hmm.
And depending on your family dynamic, that could range from something very serious or something even really small, like a very mundane, something that you might bicker over.
Hmm.
And because you disagree with them, you could like get attacked brutally
Uh-huh.
just because you disagree with a very small thing.
Uh-huh.
There's
Very
just this
common.
expectation that you have to listen and you have to agree, or even if you don't agree, you are expected to shut up.
Yeah. And it makes you a bad kid if you don't. But we
Mhm,
got into that in our obedient kid episode, so
mhm.
we digress.
Oh, and even just outside parents and familial or like elders in your family, like grandparents,
Hmm.
there's an expectation that you listen to anyone with an authoritative position, which, yes, can seem pretty obvious because they have a level of authority over you. But in terms of just dynamics within different Asian cultures, you if you cross or if you talk back to someone that's an authority figure or someone that's just older than you, whether or not you're related, is seen as a way bigger deal than
Hmm.
it may be in the West.
Hmm.
Because, yes, it is relatively universal that, here in Canada, if you were to yell at your teacher in elementary school, you would probably be seen in a negative light because
Hmm.
why are you yelling at your teacher
Yeah.
in the fourth grade? But it's just not exactly seen the same way. Because, I mean, there's just, I don't know, rebellion, while it happens everywhere and is supported and also criticized everywhere, rebellion can seem like such a huge betrayal
Hmm.
in Asian families or just among Asian communities to like go against what the elders say.
For sure.
Oh, one other thing about what I just said
Hmm.
about going against what elders say, the the whole thing where, Asian family talk among themselves, their relatives and family friends, they gossip among themselves. If someone is someone that tends to go against their parents or just go against the grain, they are seen in a really negative light by their community, like their immediate community.
Mm,
And it's shameful. It's like, oh, do you know about that kid? They like never listened to their parents, or
mm,
they, I don't know, went out of state for university and abandoned their parents,
yeah.
things like that. Which kind of goes back to the filial piety episode when we are talking about expectations to always serve your parents.
Mhm.
But yeah, this whole thing, like it feeds into this huge fear and this immense guilt that you feel.
Yeah. It's like a personal fear for your own safety with punishment, but also like a social fear of what other people are going to think.
For
Lots of
sure.
fear.
So much.
Yeah.
Never running out.
Yeah. I can say from my personal experience, I fear or I'm afraid of my own parents in the same way that we just mentioned. Um, and the way that that manifested, especially when I was younger, was that like I would I wouldn't even like hide things from my parents because I was too scared of that. I would just if I was in trouble, I'd just tell them. Or like if I did something bad, I'd tell on myself. You know? Like that like you
Yeah,
can't
I feel like that's a pretty like that's a, not a yeah, that's a pretty common or
yeah,
I've
yeah.
heard that before, I feel like.
It's just so funny because like
I've
the
probably done
concept
that too.
yeah, yeah. It's a very typical thing with people who like are afraid of their parents. Like
Mhm.
the fact that you can't even hide something because you're so afraid that you just snitch on your own self.
Yeah.
But that was when I was younger mostly. I'm over it at this point. Too tiring. I think just in general, the way that I live my life, it's hard for me to give like specific examples because again, it's a very general, like I've just structured my way of like thinking and the things that I do around this. Like certain things, like if certain things happen in school, like at this point I just won't say anything. Like I've just stopped talking about school because that opens up possibilities for my parents
Oh,
to
for
know
sure.
things. Um, so it's just a lot of like when I was younger, obviously there was the self snitching, but now it's like I just don't say anything because nothing means nothing can come out of it.
Mhm.
And I guess if you did psychoanalyze that at this point, it's just so
You
like
did
regular,
psychoanalyze
like
that.
normal.
Uh-huh.
But if you were to look deeper into it, obviously you'd see that it was like somewhat of a fear behind that, like why I'm not as open with my parents about stuff like that.
Mhm.
Um, how about you? I mean, I'm sure there's lots of overlap with what I just said as well.
Mhm. Yeah. I definitely, well, you probably heard me say, in term, you as in the listener, I probably did relate or probably did kind of do what you did in terms of the self-niching.
Mhm.
There were definitely times where, very stupidly, let's just say I spilled something on the table.
Mm.
Rather than saying I spilled it, I'd be like, it spilled.
Mm.
Just because I don't know, I guess, well, I mean, as a child, there is outside of the sense of fear, you're just don't you don't really understand accountability, right?
Mhm.
And so you might say like that it spilled or like, oh no, this happened, but like I didn't do it,
Yeah,
right? And
yeah,
then
true. Yeah.
the self-snitching was very real. I mean, you said in a previous episode that we could probably count on one hand the amount of times that we acted out due to like the way that we
Yeah.
grew up.
Yeah.
There was one time, I don't even know how to explain it, that for some reason and I knew I shouldn't have, but for some reason that particular day I decided to draw on the wall.
I see.
Crazy, I know. And I was like, what
Happens
did
to
I
the
just
best of us.
do? It was genuinely, I remember this so vividly. I did it, and then it was like I wasn't even aware that I did it. It was like something took over me. And then I told my parents. I was freaking out. And they I don't remember the reaction, which it could be a good or bad thing. Although, to make you feel better, I now, if I were to bring it up now, or there were like one or two times that they have brought it up in passing as a joke. So
Mm,
they don't resent me for it, you know what I mean?
mm,
But yeah, I mean, my fear with my parents, oh my God, I mentioned this before, but I would ask every day if I was a good kid, or
mm.
just if anything happened, I immediately, like, my heart would sink. There'd be like
Yeah,
my stomach would be below the earth.
yeah. No, yeah, for sure. And it's
Which,
just it's so
yes.
funny because like both of us were never at like we would never have done anything
Mhm.
to be afraid of, but if we heard like our name called or like something, it's just oh my god, like
Yeah,
what
literally,
did I
even
do?
now.
Yeah, still to this day.
Yeah, even now, if I get called, like, "Can I talk to you about something?" "About what?"
Like what did I do? And I just like have to retrace everything, anything that I
Yeah.
messed up,
But it's like,
anything that I slipped on.
what did I even what could I have done? Because
Yeah,
you know me and I know you, and
yeah.
our listeners, never mind. Uh, we don't act out, and we also don't really do, like, truthfully, we don't do anything that would lead to us being like, "No, they found out
um,
about."
Maybe
Yeah.
for you. I think I've done some things that are
Uh-huh.
not as
Okay, okay.
bad as like other things that I
Yeah.
could have done, but there are some things.
Okay,
I'll say
okay.
that. I'll be
Yeah.
honest.
Okay. No judgment.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Yes, and no prying.
Thank you. I mean, for the audience, no prying. I mean, you know certain things that I've done. But anyways.
And the thing is, even if it wasn't about acting out, sometimes the smallest thing, I would be afraid of them knowing, or just I would just be afraid. Like, I could be, I don't know, watching a family friendly, what did I just say? I could be watching a family friendly TV show, like a TV channel, on like a show on a kids channel,
Hmm.
and they'd walk by and I'd suddenly be afraid.
Mm,
But if it could be a kid's cartoon. It could literally be, I don't know why this is the thing popping up in my head, and this is probably a very Canadian example, but the Scaredy Squirrel cartoon.
nice. Good choice.
Comment down below if you know about that. I was
Yeah.
thinking about it last week because I was at the grocery store with my friend, and she was complaining about the way that the fruits were stacked because she noticed that someone had started stacking them and then they just gave up, kind of. And I was reminded of Scaredy Squirrel cartoon because Scaredy
Nice.
Squirrel stacked and labels things at a grocery store.
Yeah.
Anyway, things like that, just the smallest thing. It could even be, I don't know, I'm just sitting on the floor doing a puzzle, which is something that I could have been doing a month ago. And and they'd walk by and I'd be like,
Let's move.
yeah.
Even just like for me, like maybe it's not as big on the fear and more just like weird, like awkward. I guess it stems from fear from before, and then now it's just like awkward. Just
Mhm.
like cooking in the kitchen and
Oh
then
my
having like
God.
one of them be like in the area. It's like
Yeah.
I'm gonna cook as fast as I
Cooking,
can.
washing the dishes.
Yeah, it's just so like it's like awkward.
For me, I I personally wouldn't characterize it as awkward.
Mm,
I would probably characterize it more as fear because my parents are very judgmental and
I
also
mean,
very controlling. I'm sure I've mentioned either one of those traits in the past.
mhm.
And because they are very judgmental and or very controlling, if they're around me when I'm doing something, I either get really stressed out or I get very pissed off
Mm.
because I could be washing the dishes and then my my mom or my dad will stand there. And then the fact that they're standing there, I will question them and I will ask, "What? Why are you watching me do the dishes? Or can you not be here right now?"
Mm.
And they'll say something along the lines of, "I'm just standing," or "I'm just doing this," or whatever. And like I could really would appreciate it if you were not watching me while I was washing the dishes, or if I
Yeah.
was stirring boiling water. I don't know why I just said that, but if I was boiling water, let's take out the stirring part. If I was boiling water, because they judge everything I do or a lot of the things I do, and they comment on it and they question me in a very negative way. I don't know if you can relate to this or if listeners can relate to this, but my parents, my mom a little more so than my dad, tend to ask questions that lead with negativity. So for instance,
Mm, yeah.
instead of instead of I don't know, "Have you taken your vitamins yet?" It would be, "Why haven't you taken your vitamins yet?" But
Mm.
how do you know I haven't taken my vitamins yet?
Mhm. That's a big one.
And that was something that always bothered me growing up and even now,
Mhm.
because they lead everything negatively,
Mhm.
and it feeds into the whole, like, everything you do is wrong,
Mm.
and so it's like you rather not be doing anything in front of them at all.
Mhm. Man, you saying, like, leading with negativity reminds me, like, sometimes my mom will just have a certain look on her face,
Mhm,
and I'm filled with this, like, visceral fear that,
mhm,
what is she angry about? Why does she look angry? What did I do to have her look at me with this anger in her face? And then I will like try not say anything. And sometimes it's just genuinely just the way that she looks.
mhm,
Like it just so happened that unconsciously her face just like looks upset. And
mhm, like a
sometimes
resting
it's
face?
like, yeah, yeah. And sometimes it's like she is upset about something. And then I don't want to ask, but clearly like she wants me to ask. But then when I ask, it's automatically just like a snap. And it's like up. I how could I have telepathically known that something was off? Like, do you really have to start off with the anger and all of this? And that's like something that's still to this day like very, very terrifying. Just like
Mhm,
looking, just like even just like passing by, and it's like, oh no, like I
yeah,
know
for
to stay
sure.
away 100%
Yeah, the
for the next couple
energy.
hours. Yeah, the
Mhm,
vibes just horrible, terrible,
ye
makes me feel like afraid, like
mhm,
uncomfortable. I want to get out of here. And just with a single look, that's it. And I'm sure a
yeah,
lot of people can relate to that.
mhm. It really sucks because there's a lot of this generational trauma that
Mm.
a lot of Asians feel because their parents did this and then their parents did this, and yeah, people always talk about breaking the cycle and whatever, but like
Mhm.
sometimes I just sit there and I think like what happened?
Yeah.
Because I don't mean this in a way to say Asian culture is bad. No, I don't think that. There's there's a lot of these very complicated issues across all cultures.
Hmm.
But we are an Asian podcast, so we
Hmm.
will speak about
Yeah.
Asian cultures. And sometimes I'll sit there and I'll just think, what happened? What did we do? Like how did we get here?
Yeah.
And what do I do? Because this I maybe I'll change my mind in the future. But
Mhm.
I personally am not very interested in having children.
Same. I mean,
And
I agree with what you said before you said that as well.
mhm. And because sometimes people talk about how you break the generational cycle through seeking therapy or through raising your kids in a way that your parents didn't, right? But
Mhm.
sometimes that's not the solution. Sometimes
No.
having because people talk about this a lot, about revenge or not revenge, but like
I'm gonna do this. Yeah.
spitefully.
Right.
And I just don't know if that's the right way to go about it.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, with anything, there's going to be issues with any parenting styles. Like, even though you think that the way that you're raising your kids is going to be perfect because it's going to be different from what your parents did to you and like you didn't like what your parents did to you, there's
Mhm.
still going to be flaws with the way that you raise your child, completely new flaws that you've never thought about,
Mhm.
but still flaws nonetheless. And that is why like generational trauma and just like the whole cyclical aspect of these things exists, is because like whatever, like you're, as much as you can water down the trauma and just like the issue, like you can't exactly break the cycle without without like, the way to break the cycle of like motherhood and just like parenthood in general is to just not have kids. Like that's the ultimate way to be like, I'm breaking the cycle. Anything else,
Oh my
unless you
goodness.
are like the perfect individual that like matches up like perfectly with the personality of your child, like there's still going to be issues and whatever. That being said though, some issues are a lot worse than others.
Mhm. It's very complicated. I mean,
It
I'm
is.
not a mother. I
Mhm.
haven't been one.
Mhm. Same.
I don't plan on being one. Maybe, I mothered myself a little
Yeah,
growing up. I'll
that's
say that.
true. I've mothered a couple children in my day. Not
Me
actually.
too. Me too.
Yeah.
I
Like
have
I've
been the
had,
mom friend before.
yeah.
Remember what you said to me yesterday?
Yeah. Which, if you want to know what Tiffany said, buy our Patreon. Just kidding. We don't have a Patreon. Unless you
Unless
want to
you
know, and
want.
then we'll make it and then tell you. But yeah, just we know,
What we put? Would our Patreon just be trauma dumping?
I guess. Trauma dumping, but like this time everyone gets like the receipts and the personal name, the full government names of everyone.
Oh my goodness, not the go. Okay. If that's gonna happen, then people are gonna have to sign contracts, like
That's
NDA.
Yeah, that's true. But let us
Anyway,
know if you want.
yeah. Anyways,
While I was looking for things or just like researching on this episode topic, I came across a subreddit called r/Asian Parent Stories. And the about section for this community is the only place on the internet that wants to hear about the crappy stuff your bad Asian parents did. Sorry, but if you want to brag about your parents, go somewhere else. This Reddit was created June 6th of 2012, so it's 10 years old. It has 79K members. And I think that if you're feeling a little down and you want to feel that like communal feeling of feeling down about your Asian parents, this would be a great place to just scroll and read and be like, felt, relatable, same. And what I did just for like when I first came across this subreddit, and like as like right now, I go to the posts and then I sort it by new just to see how active the subreddit is, because it was made 10 years ago. I didn't know how exactly how active it was. But you generally have like quite a few posts from the past week. And like if you are on the subreddit and you sort by new, you'll probably have like one or two posts in the last 24 hours, which is quite sad. but I think it's very interesting and it says a lot about this general consensus of being scared of your own parents in the Asian community. So, just to give you guys a little brief taste on what this subreddit, like the vibe of this subreddit is, I'm going to read a couple titles, not the stories, but the titles that sound very interesting. And these are relatively like recent, like within this year. So a strong one. This title is called I Wish My Dad Was Dead, period. I truly do, period.
It reminds me of this is related but somewhat unrelated because she's not Asian, but Jeanette McCurdy, her book,
Oh
her
yeah.
memoir, it was called I'm Glad My Mother Died or I'm Glad My Mom Died.
You know what? Hearing certain situations about Jeanette McCurdy's situation, I'm glad her mom died too. That poor woman. Oh my god. I wish her
Yeah,
all the best.
I watched some of her interviews and
Yeah,
some of the
brutal.
podcast clips. Anyways, carry on.
Mm. Okay. Well, I guess somewhat related to that. Another title, I'm scared my Asian mother is going to kill me. Um, Another title, how do you pave your own path if you're scared of everything? This one's a discussion. I'm literally scared as hell right now. Dot 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 dot. And that's just the title. Very clickbait. I like it. Oh, here's one that's very related to the episode. And this one's under like the support section. The title is I feel like a failure and I'm scared my parents will find out. Wow. Sound familiar, anybody?
Ooh, there's a title here. You want grandchildren? Sorry, but no.
Oh, here's one. I feel so anxious around my mother. It's gotten worse. I feel so small around her. My hands tremble sometimes. I'm so scared of her. Oh, God. These are just sad. Oh, man. But yeah, this is like the general feel of r slash Asian parent stories. It's like you can search up keywords. Um, and I searched up scared to get some of these. So actually, like I lied about within the like 24 hours, maybe you have one or two posts. It's probably more than that.
Hmm.
Because I was just
Also,
searching scared.
hmm also, if you do decide to go to this Reddit and read it, I will say go like approach it with caution because there is
Mm,
a lot of mention of abuse, whether that's physical or emotional, or there's talk of like suicide,
mm.
and so please proceed with caution
Yeah.
if those are those are topics that trigger you because this Reddit is pretty, for lack of better words, intense,
Yeah. It's
and
it's
there's a lot of trauma in here.
yeah.
I didn't know about this Reddit until Rihanna brought it up in the planning portion of this episode.
Mm.
And as I was reading it, or as I was seeing it, I related a lot to a lot of just the titles
Yeah.
alone, but
Yeah.
this I wouldn't show this Reddit to everyone.
Yeah, for
That's
sure.
not to say that no one should know about it, but
Yeah.
this is not something I would show everyone.
It's definitely something that you have to be a certain type of person to go through this because I do think that there is a lot of support on this Reddit and this
Mhm.
is a great place if you are okay with stuff like that to like unload some trauma, especially if you don't have an outlet to do so. Um,
Mhm.
Seems
Therapy's not
pretty
accessible
active.
to everyone.
Hmm. However, that being said, like if you are the type of person to be very uncomfortable or even be like triggered by certain topics, maybe stay away. Um,
Mhm.
Here's one story that I know is relatable to some people. Like, basically, let me read it. Okay. The title is Please Help. My father used an old wow. My father used an old phone to spy on me. And it's in the support section. So this person wrote, he found pictures of me and my boyfriend. Nothing graphic, just me hugging him or kissing him. I feel really hurt and betrayed that he would go through my phone. I'm 19. He says he's the one who feels betrayed, though. I don't understand why having a boyfriend is such a horrible thing. He gave me the most disgusted and disappointed look. He says that I'm dead to him and he wishes that he never had a trash daughter like me. I'm supposed to go back to school on the 22nd of August, but they said that we're going to a wedding and leaving on the 26th. I don't know if I trust them. I'm stuck in India and I'm scared they're going to keep me here forever. I want to leave so badly, but I don't know what to do. I'm scared to be on my own. I'm scared to become independent, but I'm more scared of being stuck here. What do I do? Please help me. And luckily there's some advice in the comments section, people saying like ask your parents to show you like the return ticket, stuff like that, and saying like possibly the US embassy, because the poster is from the US, like maybe the US embassy could help you if you are stuck there, stuff like that. But I know that this is a very common thing, not just Asians, like in the Asian community. I know like just generally there people do this thing where if their child is acting up, they say, "Oh, we're gonna go to like home country, insert home country here for a vacation," and then just end up leaving the kid there to stay because they think it's better for the kid to stay there. Um, and sometimes they do it so that it's like, "Oh, we're going to our home country for a wedding for your cousin." But in reality, it's actually they're getting the kid married off in the home country because they think like in America or in the Western world, like the kid is like not in a good environment. So they just marry them off in their home country, which is a very, very terrifying thing to think about. Um, and it is very common. So,
It makes I don't know if I wanna say happy, but so it's very sad to me that this person came to this Reddit. I don't know if they found it on a whim or if they had been a part of it in general, but it makes it sad to me that this was the way that they were crying for help.
mhm,
And it also I don't know if I wanna say makes me happy or warms my heart, but it's nice that there is this community and people were immediately giving them advice, like you were saying about the US Embassy, and then they
mhm,
were asking these follow-up questions and trying to help and gather more understanding about the situation.
mhm,
It's just, because yes, the internet is a very large and scary place,
mhm.
but alongside that, it's I'm just thinking about people before online communities were so accessible, right?
Yeah.
And I'm feeling for those people.
Mhm.
Like my heart is breaking a little. I mean, my heart broke reading that, but man, I just can't imagine because what if they didn't have access to internet? What if their
Yeah.
parents, because they said they were stuck and then they they didn't even know if they could leave
Mhm.
the country.
Yeah. I've seen a lot of that on TikTok as well. People literally recording it, like thinking that they're gonna make a fun TikTok, and then they're just stuck in their home country. And again, like
Oh,
as much,
really?
yeah, as much as like the internet is scary, like very glad to see like people actually supporting and like giving advice, like useful advice for people in these situations. And just in general, like as we said earlier, even though this Reddit may have like it has content that is very, very serious and maybe triggering, but it is a great way to like possibly get advice or even just like vent all your feelings out.
Mhm.
So if you are interested and think that that may help you, like maybe click on the link to this Reddit in our description. Like it could be a good place for you to even just like dump your own feelings out if you don't want to
Right.
read through other things.
Mhm. And we'll also in the link or in the description of this episode, we'll put some like alongside the Reddit, we'll put some mental health resources or
Mm-hmm.
Asian mental health resources
Mm-hmm.
that you can look into
Mm-hmm.
should if you're interested or if you have the means to.
Mm-hmm.
The Reddit is also there, like Rihanna said.
Mm-hmm.
So we started off this episode in a tone that's a little different than how it later played out, and also
Yeah.
in the way that we're kind of ending it or closing it right now. And you know what? That is okay because while our podcast, we try to keep things kind of lighthearted. We do talk about serious topics, whether that be things more on the political side or more on the emotional side or the trauma side. And some things you just kind of have to talk about it as is, right? Because as nice as it is to keep things light and funny, think life is hard. Things happen, and sometimes making jokes just isn't the way that you end up. I don't
Mm-hmm.
want to say solving, but you know what I
Yeah.
mean. Like
Yeah.
sometimes you just have to say it as is, and so that's kind of what we did in this episode. And like we were saying, with the Halloween season upon us, we wanted to talk about fear in a different way that we hadn't really before because we have talked about Asian horror movies, Asian horror games, or video games in general. And this is a topic of fear that is something that's very personal to a lot of people, but not in the general, like, ooh, Asian horror movie or ooh, I'm scared of my parents. It's much deeper than that, right? And we hope with our podcast or even just sharing some of these spaces that we found, such as the Reddit or spaces that you found on your own or through your friends and people that you care about or look up to, that you can find ways to deal with that fear and kind
Mm-hmm.
of process it or digest
Mm-hmm.
it. Because the two of us, we're still working on it. I'm still
Yeah.
scared of my parents. Maybe not in the same way I was when I was 5, but I'm definitely still scared of them.
Mm-hmm.
I still would prefer that they are not around when I wash the dishes or when I pour water in my cup.
Or even just looking at them sometimes.
Hmm. And we're working through this together.
Mm-hmm.
It's probably been said millions of times by us and other people, but you're not alone in your immense fear.
Mm-hmm.
We feel it too.
Mm-hmm. In different ways, but we still feel it as well.
Hmm. And like I was saying, we hope that maybe by us talking about it or by these other people talking about it, that it just helps you process things
Mm-hmm.
or deal with it. I don't know if deal is the wording that I'm want or intended to use, but I'm sure you know what I mean.
Yeah. And as Tiffany said earlier, there will be resources in the description as well as the Reddit.
And as always, thank you so much for tuning in. We say this every episode,
Mm-hmm.
but we sincerely appreciate you tuning in and listening to our podcast because we also say this practically every episode. This with Rihanna and I, this podcast is Rihanna and I stairwell safe space
Yeah.
virtualized or
Yeah.
digitized.
Immortalized.
Yeah. We may not be at that stairwell anymore, but this is the stairwell.
Is.
This is our stairwell together. And so we hope that we can share this stairwell space with you. Unless you don't like stairwell, there could be a nice cozy room, whatever you wish it to be.
A nice, comfortable couch.
It's like the room of requirement from Harry Potter.
Yeah.
This is what we are.
Yeah.
Anyway, feel free to leave a comment about like if you have stories that you would like to share, do feel free to do that. If you've been on the r/AsianParent Story Reddit, you can feel free to talk about that. If you have resources or other community spaces you would like to share and talk about, definitely leave a comment about that. If on a somewhat lighter note you would like to recommend some Asian horror movies or just Halloween costumes, we are also always happy to hear about those things. I would love to hear about what someone is dressing up as for Halloween.
Yeah.
I love watching those videos of people doing Halloween costume montages or getting ready for Halloween. So
They're always fun.
Halloween's a fun holiday. Yeah. People are very creative and I love it.
Well, if you guys like this episode and want to stay connected with us, check out our website in the description. It contains links to our streaming platforms such as Spotify, Anchor, Apple Podcasts, and more. Follow us for more behind-the-scenes content, announcements, and other random things we decide to put on there.
Happy Halloween!
Yay!
See you next time!